Good morning, afternoon, and evening, my crazies. My name's Angela. I'm the Crazy Poppy Lady, and welcome back to this week's Whips, Bits, and Chat. Come on, let's see what I got for you today. So first up, we're going to do a video roundup for the last 2 weeks. It sounds like a lot, but there hasn't actually been a great deal of videos out on the channel because I didn't have anything in stock, and the hand, this one here, Evil Toad, still wasn't playing. So, well, it wasn't the hand, it's actually the wrist. So because of that, the projects I had in mind that I wanted to show you, I was unable to do. So I started off with the Queen's Cliff Victoria. That's in Melbourne, by the way, if you didn't know. It was meant to be swimming with wild dolphins and seals, but the dolphins decided not to show. So it is a case of swimming with wild seals, and that was recorded in January when we were out visiting the family. Now, it was my husband and daughter that went out because I've got a very weak left side. I decided there was no way I was going to attempt it because I'd just end up going around in circles because only the right side works. So I clearly was not a strong enough swimmer to go and do this, which is a shame because I didn't get to do it the first time we went and got to swim with dolphins because my youngest was a baby at the time. I was still having to hold her and feed her and things like that. So it was my husband and eldest daughter that went off and did it the first time. So this second time it was time for the youngest, who's now like 18, nearly 19. It was her chance to do it with her dad. So it was a really lovely memory that the two of them built up. Now there was about 6 hours worth of footage that I had to go through to make that video, and there were certain things I of course had to cut out, like people we didn't know, the fact that my husband was holding the camera as he was swimming, so you can imagine, over the head, air, thigh shot multiple times, so that chunk had to be cut out as well. And my daughter didn't want to be shown on camera, so anything with her in as well needed to be cut out, but she was recording as well, and she got the second part. Like, the second part of the video is her recording, so I kept her dad's at one end, hers at the other, so that you could see it from two different perspectives. It was really lovely to finally get it put together and put up for you guys, and what we on 70 of you so far have watched it. It's only a little short video, it's nothing too long, and there's no talking past me. There's no other talking in it once they get out to sea and things. It's just music, so it's something to chill out to for 5 to 10 minutes if you fancy it. The next one up was the Crazy Moo giveaway winner announcement take 2, because the first winner didn't contact me in any way, shape or form, which really is a shame, but it meant that our second winner had a chance to win. She's now claimed her prize, so fingers crossed she's raided her yarn stash, and she might even be making it as I'm talking to you, because I know that she's not in the UK and it's getting cold where she is. So she's going to need it soon, aren't you, girl? Come on, get them gloves done first and send me a picture. Once the gloves are done, you'll have the pattern down. Right, so that is it for videos for this week. And last. Right, so what have I been up to this last fortnight? As I'd said to you in the last Whips Bits, I think I told you anyway, my wrist was playing me up. It was clicking. It was getting really, really painful. So I had to put the crochet hook down. I put it down for a day and just sewed in ends on this. That didn't work. So, or did it? No, it did. It relaxed it a bit. So the next day I added another round to this. That made it worse again. So I went back to sewing ends. I pretty much got this done. I think there's about 4 ends hanging off the bottom, but I won't tell no one if you don't. So I was like, I can't keep doing this to my wrist. I'm just going to do myself so much more damage. So I went on to sewing up the pink bag. And one of you did actually guess what it was, but you private messaged me rather than admitting it on the channel. So I'm now going to show you it, and I've realised now it hasn't got the straps put on yet because I'm not going to bother. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'll be making a few. I may make a few different animals. Now I've got enough to put one set of straps on something because I've got the clips, but I haven't got any more of them. And as it's a display piece for here, I'm just going to stuff it with yarn, hiding place, stick it up on the shelf behind me so people can see it and go, oh, nice bag. Okay, so are you ready for your debut? Here he is, or she. I'm tempted to put a bow on its head, but we got Piggy. So here is the next one. Oh, it's not. I really didn't look at it properly. I didn't make it look neat and tidy beforehand, but there we go. Here's Piggy. And a piggy has got arms and legs and a curly whirly tail. Now the pattern for this at the moment, it will be going through testers. I don't actually see major problems with it. But if you would like to be a tester, now you know what it is. Pop a message in the description box down below or email me and we'll connect and see if you can get it tested in like the next week or so. That would be absolutely ideal because then the pattern can go up for everybody else. But that will be on Ravelry. There won't be any videos for this one on the channel. Okay, so that's number 1. Done. Number 2 is the dress. As I said, I've still got a couple of loose ends at the bottom, but you don't need to see that. It comes down to my calf. And I had loads of yarn left over from the 3mm bags. So there we go. Let's see if I can show you it a little bit better. There we go. Now it has got a lot of give in it, as you can see. I could, if the top decided to grow a bit more, I'd have lots of room. If the butt and the belly grow more, I'm going to have a lot of room. But I quite like it because for the most part it hides all of the bits and pieces I don't like. You heard right, I don't like. So the only drawback is because I was using mill end bags, as you can see here. No, that side, as you can see, it's not symmetrical and it doesn't match fully. I tried, okay, I tried with the scraps to get it to match. So if you're in the US and you would like to make this pattern up, keep an eye out on the channel. There is going to be a tutorial. Now, if you're not in the US and you can't get your hands on this yarn and you wanted to say use a DK weight, I will explain more closer to the time. Now, I was thinking of running this one as a cowl, or cowl. Is that, no, what's the right word? Basically as an instalment over the next month, say. So that I send you off and I get you to do a section at a time, and then you can whiz through and do a bit more and a bit more. Is that something you guys would be interested in? Because the videos are pretty much done. Please say yes, please. And I'm thinking of starting it up possibly next week. If there's enough of you that say you'd like to do it, you'll be able to swap out the yarn. All the details on the sizes of the hexagons is in the very first video anyway, but I plan to do a live closer to the time, and give you a bit more detail then. I did have it written down, but I left my notes downstairs. I'm just too knackered to go downstairs and get them at the moment. Right, so now it's funny story time. At the beginning of last week, I asked my husband if I could borrow his ring light that he's got up his little office. And he said, why? And I was like, well, it's actually more comfortable for me at the moment to record sitting on the sofa because I've got the right positioning for my hand and arm and everything than what it is recording up here on the underneath the overhang camera. And because I have to have my arm a different way, so it put more strain on the wrist. So he said, oh, all right then. So he's gone up the office, he's come back with the ring light. And we've gone to put my mobile phone in it and realised that it only recorded portrait style, not landscape. And of course, I need landscape for here. So out comes the little GoPro, and we stick the GoPro in the mount, and it worked brilliantly. But the problem is, the way I had it set up, or the only way I could have it set up was upside down. So it meant that when I came into editing videos, I'd have to rotate the video so it's the right way up. But it's doable. I know it's doable. I've had to do it in the past, right? And so I set this up and I'm like, right, I'm ready to go. So I press the record button and I start recording the tutorial for this square that's going to be a top. And I get about 10 rows in. And I'm like, right, now I want to check it because it's the first 10 rows. If there's an issue, it's easier to strip those back and they don't take so long to redo. So I would call in hubby and say to hubby, right, I need the little card reader that we have because your laptop I'm borrowing has a card reader in the side, but it doesn't have the card reader for the little memory card that's in the GoPro, so it needs this adapter. So off he runs to find the adapter. He comes back in, puts it all up for me, sets it all out, shoves it in, takes over completely, shoves it in the side of the computer and pulls it up and goes, these are really lovely photos, Ange. I went, photos? It's meant to be videos. He went, no, darling, it wasn't set up properly. It was set to photograph every sort of 15, 20 seconds. He's gone, you've got loads of photos, but none of them are really clear. I was like, okay, strip it back and start again. Well, I stripped it back and thought, no, because this was during the week where the wrist was playing up. So I stripped it back and thought, no, I'm going to stay put. I'm not going to do any recording for that. And I will start up that one, so it will be up on the channel in a couple of months' time, just in time for summer, I'm thinking. But I was sitting there and I'd sewn in ends on quite a few different projects and I was okay with that. And my wrist was starting to relax, but every time I pick up the crochet hook, because of the way that I use my hook and the twisting of my wrist, it was triggering it off again. And I was like, I've got to do something. I'm going insane. I even went to bed at like 9 o'clock, 9:30 one night. My husband thought that was very strange because he goes to bed at about 11:30 and I'm still up for at least another hour. Crocheting. So I'm like, I'm going to bed. He's like, are you sure? I went, yeah, I'm bored. He was like, oh, okay. Next night, I'm going to bed. Silly o'clock. It was 9:30. He went, are you okay? Are you feeling ill? I went, no, I just can't crochet. And then that was over like the weekend, and he was like, this is insane. You're starting to rock. You're starting to go crazy. You need to find something to do. Fancy cleaning the house? I was like, no, because over the weekend I'd also mowed the back garden. It was first mow of the year. So it was really hard, heavy going, and that had triggered the wrist. And I'd also cleaned the carpet in the lounge over that week. Yeah, and I had that was it. I started doing it and I started getting bored, and I walked into my husband's office and I said to him, "Darling, have you got some wireless headphones?" This bloke has got most things in his room. It's his gadget cave. And he goes, "Why do you want wireless?" I said, "Well, I want to play some music, but I can't unless I blast it through the telly." I said, "I can't really hear it." I said, "And I've tried using my earphones, which work beautifully." I said, "but they're attached to my tablet. So I'm having to carry stuff around. If you've got some wireless ones that will connect to my tablet, I would be really happy." So he looks at me, smiles, and goes, "Yeah, come on then." So he picks up these headphones. Don't know whereabouts in this room they were, but he picks up these headphones, walks out, connects them to my tablet. He says, "What do you want to listen to?" And I'm like, "Oh, I need my happy tracks." And he's like, "Happy tracks?" And I went, "Yeah, I've got to admit it now." Um, Basically, when I'm getting to the end of a project, you know, when you get to that point where you want to finish it, but you sort of find other things to do so that you don't finish it, so it's not over, because you're enjoying it too much. Yeah, I've noticed I do that. So now I've got my happy tracks, or my I'm gonna finish it tracks. And basically, what it is it's a collection of tunes, a playlist over here on YouTube, and it's tunes that were used in Supernatural, the TV series. If I remember to, I will pop the playlist in the comments, not the comments section, the drop down menu. And so if you want to listen to them, you can. And it's a mixture of old music, and we're talking some of this stuff came out before I was born, right? So I'm talking before the late 70s. Um, but it's all tracks that I know, that I've heard when I was growing up, that have all got funny or happy memories attached to them. So I really love this playlist. And so I'm there with the earphones on and I'm dancing, but I'm slow dancing because of the problems with my left side. So I've literally got the carpet cleaner handle on my tummy and I am moving so slowly. I'm like pigeon steps. Well, pigeons could have run a marathon in the time it took me to do these walking steps. But I'm doing them and I'm jiggering around and dancing silly, slowly pulling it back, the carpet cleaner back. I was doing it on, it was so slow that instead of it normally taking me 3 passes to make sure the carpet's really clean, because it's the carpet that's the closest to the back door. And of course, Liam goes outside. He likes to run laps, so he's made himself a little track in the mud. He's like dug a little track. So when he does that and comes in, his feet are caked, constantly caked in mud. And he gets ground into the carpet. So normally I'll do a couple of passes, and then once it's properly clean, I'm happy. Well, this time round I was like, I'm not going to do multiple passes. I'm just going to go slow. So I went slow, so slow. My husband's like, I'm emptying these dirty buckets out, refilling, and he's like, it took about 2.5, 3 hours to do this carpet. I did put in regular rest breaks as well, where I couldn't crochet, but regular rest breaks. and my husband's like, okay, this is looking amazing, done a wicked job. It took a day to dry up, but luckily we had a hot day the next day, or 18 degrees. But where the sun comes around our house, it comes sort of between about 10 and 4, we get all the sun into this room. So if you close off the double doors that we've got, it becomes very, very hot. So even in winter, it's a nice, naturally heated, warm room. So I've got the curtains fully open, fully out of the way, getting as much heat into the room as possible for the first half of the day, and then I opened the doors. I let all of the condensation out. Actually, I did it twice. I did it before before daybreak for about an hour to get rid of the condensation, and then did it again about 2 o'clock. Liam was in his element because he could go in the garden. But he's really good when I clean the carpets, because I put a towel down by the back door and he will walk to the... There's 2 things he'll do. Before he comes in, he looks over to his splash pool that he's got. If the water's clean enough, he gets in it and laps in the splash pool, gets out, runs backwards and forwards across the decking to sort of dry off his feet, and then he comes in and stands on the towel for inspection. He's a good puppy. Or the other one is he just stands by the back door and I look at him and go wash your feet, and he'll go off and do. But he's a really good puppy, so he made sure his feet were clean each time he came in. So that was a bonus. My carpet is still clean. Liam is still cleaning his feet. Daughter does not come in with her shoes on. She now puts her shoes on in the hallway until I clean there. And husband walks in with his shoes on. But at least the carpet's dry. It managed to get dry this time. Last time it didn't. Last time he had to then clean the carpet. But yeah, so they're the sort of jobs and things that I've been doing this week just to fill in time. Or last week, over the weekend I should say, to fill in time. Now this week I decided I'd had enough. I was going crazy. I needed yarn in my hand. I needed to do something. Right, so if you're not interested in this next bit, it's about the dark side. There is a skip in the description, in the thing down below, and I'll write what the dark side is. But there's an item I'm very impressed with myself. So I came up here and I turned to the dark side. You know what the dark side means for this channel, don't you? This is a crochet channel, and the dark side is knitting. Honestly. Right, so for my newer subscribers, years and years and years ago, I'm talking when I was 12, I met a lady on a bus, and this lady taught me how to knit the knit stitch, and that is all I've known for years, was how to do the knit stitch. Now, I made a teddy bear under her advisement. She basically, each day I met her on the bus, because she worked, she got the bus every single day that I did to go to school. So she was on the bus and she would give me 2 rows of instruction. She'd have it written down, she'd write it down the night before and hand it to me. And if there was something new I needed to learn, she would show me on her piece and then send me off just to do 2 rows. So this thing took forever to do. Until I got to straight bits where I could just go backwards and forwards. And then we put it together. It was meant to be a teddy bear. I'm sorry to say I don't have any pictures, because back then it was all film cameras and I wasn't going to waste a photograph on this teddy bear that looked more like an elephant. Because I'd stuck with the same size needles for anything. Anyone that does knit will know that sometimes you have to swap out your needles for a larger or a smaller size, just like we do with our crochet hooks, to get a certain shape. Well, I'd stuck to the same knitting needles, so the ears, instead of being, say they were meant to be like 1 inch or 1.5 inches, they ended up being twice the size. The nose, instead of being that big, she'd said to me, pull the yarn a bit tighter, so I had done, and it ended up looking more like an elephant nose. But I put it together and I gave it to my nephew, my cousin, who had just been born. So I gave it to him. My auntie looked at it and went, "That's lovely, darling." Well, it turned out he used to use it in bed, so he used to hug it in bed, which was fine, but it wasn't allowed out of the bedroom because it was scary. for a first knitted project, it was good, but it was scary. But at the end of the day, kids don't mind. They see the love, don't they? So that was the very first project that I'd ever knitted. Now, when I was pregnant with my eldest daughter in 1999, I picked up a set of knitting needles again. At this point, I was going through a cross stitch phase, but I didn't have enough money for all the cross stitches that I wanted to do for her. So I picked up some knitting needles, I picked up some black and white yarn, because I'd found out that newborns don't see colour, they only see in black and white for the first few months or whatever, or first few weeks, and then the colour starts slowly seeping in. And so I was like, okay, not a problem. So I sat there and with the knit stitch went backwards and forwards and made long panels, and the panels were set in squares, and then so it would go black white in square sequence going up these panels, and then I'd make the next panel in the reverse sequence. So when I put it together, it was checkerboard. Okay, didn't know how to sew them together. I just had a guess, and it worked, and it held up, and as far as I know, it's still holding up now. But there were a couple of mistakes, couple of stitches around the wrong way, a couple of holes that just where I'd done the stitches wrong. It had formed a hole, but it wasn't actually a drop stitch. And so out came the cross stitch out, and I made little animal cross stitches and put them over the top of any of the mistakes. So some of them were on in the centre of the square, looking neat and tidy like they were meant to be there. Some of them were over the joins. Yeah, it looked lovely. There was lots of different colourful animals on it, but they were only little squares. And then I'd bordered it with some material and some ribbon that went around the outside to neaten it up. And that was used quite a bit. Right, so that was in 1999, child born 2000. Okay, so you think, oh, that's not too far like long ago, but it's 2004 now, so there we go. My next item, I was like, right, I'm going to give knitting a go, because one of the beautiful channels that I do watch was doing a knit along, and I was like, okay, I need to learn to knit again. So went to pound shop, picked up some 4mm. I didn't know if they were the right size or not, but picked up 4mm, had my DK yarn, and I knit. I followed her how to simple videos and did a knit stitch section. Then I changed colour, and then I learnt how to purl. Okay, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, they look the same, what's going on? Right? I'm like, all this complicated movements, but it's just knitted, but it's not. Okay, it's the reverse version. It's just I put it the forward. I'd reversed it in the right spot, but whatever. Right. So then it was a case of learning how to knit a row and purl a row. As you can see, I'm about to turn it round because yeah, I joined on the wrong row. Didn't matter. This was a sample, so it was knitted, a knit and then purl in the red. I don't know if you can see that. Now, that was probably, about a year and a half ago, I suppose. Hopefully one of you will remember, because I don't. But it's in a Whips, Bits and Chat from ages ago. And that's actually before I swapped over rooms. I know that much. So that's been sitting there for absolute ages, staring at me going, you've got to learn to purl properly. You've got to learn to do it. But every time I picked up my needles, I couldn't remember how to do the purl. Now the knit is ingrained. It's from way back when. It's ingrained. I know what I'm doing, but the purl just was not ingrained. So I've sat down and I've watched that video again, and I've tried to follow along, and it just wasn't sinking in. So I was like, right, got to go elsewhere today. Pick on a different voice. Hopefully a different voice will help it sink in. So that's what I did. So I picked up a different voice, watched how they did it, and it sunk in. Don't ask me how, it just sunk in. So I'm sitting there with the 4mm and some scrap yarn, which was from a mill end bag. It was the scrap yarn. Did I use it on? Yeah, on from Baby Ellie. All right, so I'm sitting there, and I'm knitting one row, purling the next, knitting one row, purling the next, and there's my sample. All right. So I sent a picture to Sabrina and said, I'm dipping my toe in the dark side. And she was like, your stitches are looking spot on. They're looking, well, not spot on, but they're looking quite neat, and good going. I'm like, thank you. So I'd run, like, that was a scrap piece. It had come off the ball and it had ended. So I was like, right, I'm not going to learn how to join the yarn. I can't remember how to do it. I'm just going to start on this ball again and see how I go. So I started again. And I just cast on, I think it was 20. But the way I cast on was I chained and then put the last chain on my knitting needle and then pulled the next, put my crochet hook through the back bump and pulled up the yarn and put it onto the hook. And I did it that way. Now I know 2 other casting methods, I just couldn't be bothered. And I thought, well, I'll set up this casting. I want to try this method because it's very much like a Tunisian crochet anyway. I think it is the method for Tunisian crochet. So I thought, well, I'll give this a go because I want to see how it sits and if I'm doing it correctly. So that's what I did. And then I just kept going. And I just kept going backwards and forwards, swapping the stitches, until I had a long panel. And it was coming up to the end of that piece of scrap yarn. So I cast off, added a chain halfway. Don't ask, okay. Added a chain halfway and cast off the rest, right? I was like, what am I going to do with it? Well, I decided I needed to learn how to sew anyway. So back onto YouTube I came, looking for different methods on how to sew things up. I didn't like any of the methods there, but I'd seen a method of fixing a drop like stitches or a rip or something, so I used that method, which was really strange, but anyway, I did it, I joined it, but I didn't get my measurements quite correct. I should have come down a bit lower because I decided, right, well, what I can do is stick a button on it, roll it over, stick some soap in it, right? Simple. But if I'd straightened the seam properly and fold it over, there's just not enough there. Look, there's clearly not enough. I'm struggling. So yeah, tatty project, but as a first for 25 years semi-completed project, it don't look too bad, does it? Well, at that I come up here and I thought, do you know what, I'm working on the dark side, I'm going black. None of us like working with black, so if I manage to make something with black, then I know that I could possibly carry on. If I chose to do so, that I'm not going to. Once this project is finished, that's it for me for knitting until my wrist plays up again. There will not be knitting tutorials on the channel unless I'm asked for it, and then I'm more likely just to tell you roughly what I've done because I don't understand the terminology. I've written down what I've done in a way that makes sense to me. So Sabrina, if you fancy having a nose killed, you fancy writing the pattern for me? Love you. Right, okay, so I started with the black. There we go. And I also grabbed some white because I thought if I've got 2 contrasting colours, then I'm going to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so this is my front panel of a top. You heard right. Basically, my nephew over in Australia asked me to make him an ugly vest. So I've been sending him lots of ideas over for crocheted ugly vests. They've not hit the spot, and to be honest, he's in Australia, so even if I'm crocheting in a DK weight, it's still going to be hot to wear, so it's not going to get a lot of wear. So I thought, you know what, I need to knit a vest basically, and I sent him over an image. Well, he showed me an image of a knitted jumper, knitted vest when I was over there, which was the old, what I like to call the granddad vests, the big diamond motif on. So I put a shout out out on my Facebook, like, and said, has anybody got one of these old patterns that I can borrow, or know where I can get it? And thank you very, very much, Holly, for sending it me. You know who you are. Right, but I haven't actually opened that yet. Okay, I'm going to be completely honest. I have been flying by the seat of my pant legs with this, because when I started, I was like, okay, so I'm going to need a length that's going to go half around me, with a little bit for give and a little bit for sewing. So I cast on, I think it was 98 stitches, because I'm wide. And I'm thinking, worst case scenario, if it's too small for me, not a problem. I will have to lose weight. And I do want to lose weight so I don't spend as much on yarn for myself. Right? Because the size I am at the moment, if I can shift an inch, that will save me 100 grams, give or take. Right? But I started off with casting on with the black. And then I moved on to two rows of white. So that was knit one row and then purl a row. And I did that so that I could see the difference, okay, between the two. And then I moved down a bit further and swapped the colour over to black again, and then back to white. But by the time I'd finished those rows, I was bored of this very thin striping. So I upped it, and I went a thick black stripe and then a thick white stripe. Then I realised that if I'm ever to make this jumper for my nephew, I'm going to need to know how to change colour in the round, like on the row. And I remember hearing something about floats when it comes to colour changing. So off I've come back to YouTube to look up how to do floats. I think it's called floats. It might be called something else. It probably is, knowing me. As I said, I don't really know the terminology, but basically it's where you carry the yarn on the back of your work and it can be seen. And the videos I've seen have said don't do it for any more than 4 without catching the yarn again and carrying on. So I've got to learn the catching on method, because then what I did was I just did every two blocks of 2 stitches and swap the colour. So that's where we've got this section here. There is actually a row backwards and forwards of the black before I did it, and a row between backwards and forwards of the black, and then I did another set of them because I was getting into it, you know, I was getting into it, I was. And then I moved on to reversing the pattern, because I thought, oh, it'll look all right if I reverse it. So I reversed the pattern and did the black, the white, the black, then the stripes. And then I was like, so what am I going to do now? I'll reverse it again. So I reversed the pattern again, and and then I worked out the pattern repeat, and I kept going. So end of day 1 was literally here. Okay. So, but I was chuffed with that. End of day 1. There's quite a few rows there. I'm not counting them. And then I have got it written down, but again, notepads downstairs. Then end of day 2, I got to there. Hello, marker. Day 3, I got carried away, and I got to here. So that's the purple that looks blue. Okay, now this is the length I decided I needed for my torso. If it's too short, I will add a thicker band around. If it's too long, I'll add a shorter band. Simples. So then I needed to work out how to shape for the underarms. Back to YouTube, basic video on how to make. Oh, you're joking. Okay, don't pull this around. You've dropped stitches. How the heck have you done that? Help! It's alright, it's alright. I can fix it, I can fix it. I've learnt to fix most things. Right, where are you? That one goes in there. That one goes in there. Fix it later. It's for me anyway. Right. I am so happy I spotted that before it all unravelled. And it's on the first side as well. I was really careful. Okay, but anyway, all right. So, yesterday, I started shaping. Get back to the story. And I'd followed the video, but this was a lass that was making it in a bulky weight. So it was more the principle of how to do rather than her numbers. But the principle, it worked out. So I got the shaping bit done. And then I can't think where the shaping finished. I've got to feel it. But anyway, I did the shaping, and once to there. So once I got the shaping done, I then had to work out how to divide and conquer the next bit, and how to decrease there instead of over this side. Well, I did it, and I finished this one. And so I was like, I was pretty chuffed with myself. So it was about 10:30, 11 at night. I started on this side. And these solid panels, I got carried away. So I ended up having to strip them back multiple times. So I've now learned how to run the thread through and do, I think it's, what's it called? A save line or something? But basically how to thread it through, so a piece of yarn through, so that when you rip it back, you don't lose all your stitches. On this side alone, just on the solid, so not even when it came to the awkward bits, right, just on the solid, I must have had that line in about 6 flipping times. So I gave up. I was like, enough's enough, because I'd done this section 6 times. So I gave up and I came to bed, or I went to bed. Well, it was like past midnight. So then I jumped in, got up this morning, this is Friday by the way, stripped back again to where I knew the pattern was correct, and finished it. I only had to save it twice. Only. But I finished it, so I've now got both sides done. So now it's a case of just doing the back panel. I'm going to keep going with this week, because 1, I want it finished, and 2, it has actually relaxed my wrist. My wrist isn't clicking, it's not as much pain anymore. So once I've finished recording this video today, I will get on with that. Now 32 minutes of knitting. I'll put a skip in and tell you about it. Now it's time for the bestest part of today's video, and that is your photos. Now there is a twist to this, okay? Following on from what I was saying about knitting earlier, our beautiful Sabrina Melager ordered some yarn from me a long time ago now, and she started making a shawl. Now she mixed up the colourway that I'd created, which was the rainbow, which looks something like this. This is a lighter weight though. I don't think she used, it was the 2-ply that I've got. I think she was using the DK version, but this is roughly what the colourway looked like. Okay, and she teamed that up with some black because she wanted to make this colourway a bounce, and so of course pairing it up with black makes the colour stand out a lot better when you're knitting with it. I'm only going by what she's told me. Okay, I still don't know enough about knitting, not by a long shot, but she'd started making this shawl, and she was firing me over pictures every now and then, and it was looking amazing. Well, she went out on the bus to an appointment, and I'm not too sure whether it was the bus, I can't remember back, or something else, but she lost her knitting bag with that project in, which I was like, oh my gosh, that's so unfair. And she'd said to me before I went to Australia in January, well actually before Christmas, could I dye her up a new batch? And I said, well, I needed to wait until the weather improved. Let's get Christmas out the way and January out the way, and then hopefully we'll have a couple of good days where I can dye it up and then dry it, because if I leave it sitting around too long in a damp environment, it's no good. It doesn't smell nice, and I like my yarn to smell nice. So she was like, okay, yeah, not a problem. Well, she got a phone call, I think it was about a week or so ago, saying they'd found her bag. So she went up, she grabbed her bag, and she was over the moon. And I must admit, it's so bizarre. It doesn't matter that she was going to purchase more of the yarn. That doesn't matter to me. It's the fact that she got that project back. So there she is. She's sitting there knitting, knitting, knitting. Now she showed it on her channel. There will be a link in the video description, in the description box down below, to her showing off the shawl, so you can see how it fits her. And she'll tell you a bit more about how much of the yarn she used, and a bit more about what she'd done and how she'd done it and things like that. So that will be linked in the description box and down below. But she sent me some photographs whilst I was actually putting this video up. I forgot to bug her for them. She actually sent me the photos. So here we go. I'm now going to show you some knitted items again on my crochet channel. But I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I love it, love it, love it. Hasn't she done a beautiful, beautiful job with that? And now I know how hard it is to do. She's done an amazing job, and the colour bounces beautifully. She showed us both sides of her work there because it's reversible. I can't work out what side I like more. What do you think? Pop a comment in the comment section and down below. Right, so this afternoon I am going to get on with writing out patterns for the writing out patterns, I should say, for the monkey bag and for the summertime top. I think that will probably end up being its name. I've got to make another chart for the summertime top. I've done 2 out of the 3. I hate making charts, hate it. But I'll get that done, and then that'll be ready for testers. Fingers crossed. They can test do the first bit. I've got 2 girls that are like, yeah, I want to. So one girl I'm waiting on measurements. Actually, I need measurements from both girls, so I'm going to nudge the up. But she said she was going to do Piggy first. We'll see how we go. If you fancy doing a test for me, whether it be the summertime top or the pig bag, then pop a comment in the comment section down below and find me over an email shouting tester, tester, tester at the top. And then I'll be able to give you more information on the amount of yarn you're going to need for either of those projects, and how I run them, and the test process, and what I expect from you, and then you expect from me, and things like that. Right, I have definitely talked your ear off. This is insane. I didn't think I had anything. Right, so I'm going to head off now. I will see you all really, really soon. And please remember, stay chilled, stay happy, and keep crafting. Goodbye, everybody.